So LA Confidential. So I'll just say really quickly because mine's short. I've known about this movie, but didn't really know anything about it. I think I saw a little bit of it on TV once late at night, and thought, oh, this looks like my kind of movie. I should probably see this someday. Never went further than that. So until you recommended it, so I saw it once. I did watch parts of it again. The next day, I had a 48-hour rental on YouTube, so I did rewatch some of it. So that's my sort of history of watching the movie.
I saw it right when it came out, and we'll talk more about this. Obviously, I did not like it the first time. It just really threw me because I went in. I wanted to see. We talked about this last time with Stephen. I wanted to see Chinatown, and when Danny DeVito started right away, the tone was not Chinatown, and I didn't really recover from that. So I waited a long time after that. I liked it better when I watched it the second time, probably on TV, and I'm guessing that was about, I don't know, within the last 10 years. And this was my third viewing, and about the same. I definitely have progressed from when I first saw it. I don't love it, not to the degree I didn't read Stephen's review. I told him I avoided it, but I gave it 10 out of 10. I don't feel that way about it, but I do like it better than I used to.
Before I came to it, when we thought, well, let's throw out some movies. And so I threw out a couple new ones because that seemed appropriate. But I also have a new project I started with which LA Confidential was my first choice. So I thought, well, let's see, maybe we'll watch it. So that's how I decided on it there. I come to it from when it came out. I had just finished my dissertation, which was on hard-boiled American detective novels. So I had a time there where I binged James Elroy novels. Brutal stuff. I mean,
yeah,
stuff is stuck in my mind forever. So I came to the movie LA Confidential thinking, oh, I wonder how Elroy-ish it will be. And it's pretty good. Then I watched it again some years ago, and I noticed that whenever I'd watched it that first time, I'd given it a 9 out of 10 and forgot why. That's not a 9, you know. So I watched it again, and I still thought it was excellent. So this new project is to question why I never give a 10 to a movie that's less than 40 years old or whatever. I thought, this is nonsense. So I'll take a 9 movie from not that long ago and see. So I decided I'll watch LA Confidential a third time and see if it's a 10 yet or if it's a 7 or whatever. So that was my impulse to watch it.
Okay.
And I came down on the side of it is as good as I thought, at least to me. And Russell Crowe in particular. I think it helps to remember that we barely knew him then.
Yeah.
You know, Guy and Priscilla, the Queen of the Desert, whatever that was called, and that was all we really knew of him. And Russell Crowe, he was the romper stompers. I mean, he wasn't anybody we knew. And so, and when the movie starts, he's so much the Bud White guy, you just think he's a moron blockhead who can beat people up. And it's presented that way, but Russell Crowe starts showing me there's something going on behind that blockhead face. That Kim Basinger character picks up on it. There's something going on there. And as the movie progresses, I just think he's doing a great job of getting past that point. And the movie itself then is a lot about the ways in which these characters are stuck in a particular slot. I referred to toxic masculinity this time around because these guys are toxic, but they're starting to see ways in which their way of looking at the world isn't quite right. And that happens for all the characters, not just Russell Crowe's character. So that all impressed me. I think he gets LA right, at least of the time. Kevin Spacey, that might be the first time I've watched him since the last couple of years when it became creepy to watch Kevin Spacey. But, you know, I was able to get by it. And because he's different, the two other guys, they're all different. Russell Crowe plays this blockhead, and Guy Pearce plays this brainiac, and Kevin Spacey plays this kind of sleazeball.
Glamorous, too.
You know, they all have something different, but they all are progressing towards not being quite as fucked up as they were at the beginning.
Right.
The question for me is whether or not in the end the film actually comes down against that toxicity, because in the end that actually wins. Guy Pearce gets all he thinks he wants. Russell Crowe's got the shit beat out of him, but he's got the girl. And the reason that Guy Pearce got what he wanted is because he finally gave in and let Russell Crowe beat people up. I don't know that the movie's really that critical of that kind of being a guy. So
maybe that's one of the things, I hadn't really thought about it, that bothered me, that I didn't really know what it was trying to say. When you were talking about Crowe and Guy Pearce being new, Kevin Spacey was relatively new then, wasn't he? I mean, Glengarry Ross, I guess that comes 5 years earlier.
I think Usual Suspects might have been before that too.
Usual Suspects, and what about Seven? Is that the same year? It's LA Confidential's 1997. So yeah, but he certainly wasn't anywhere near as well known as he ended up being. I noticed on the cover, you know, he's way out in front. Kim Basinger's the star, and then you got, which considering the size of the roles, Kevin Spacey should be in the background. He's got a smaller part in the other two, but the other two are barely visible.
Yeah.
James Cromwell, he was getting a lot of notice at the time, right, for Babe and other stuff. Mm-hmm. And who else was in it of note? I mean, the one guy I noticed, I don't know, Stephen, if you watch Seinfeld, are you a Seinfeld watcher?
Not expert.
Okay, because the guy who plays Kevin Spacey's equivalent on the TV show, the Jack Webb character, he was Lloyd Braun in Seinfeld in a couple of famous episodes. It's hard to watch any Seinfeld character out of Seinfeld once you've seen them. Yeah, I think you're right about the toxic masculinity, and also about, does it end up sort of saying that's okay? I don't know. I really don't. I do know in tone it's very different than Chinatown, which is all doom and gloom. I don't want to say rollicking for LA Confidential. You know, I don't like things that are rollicking. It's not quite that. But certainly Danny DeVito, his opening monologue is just so different in tone from the film I was looking for. Yeah, in the end, I think Danny DeVito's good. He's funny. He's always good. Kim Basinger is actually really good. And I just seen her in a terrible performance. I went back for the first time since it came out to watch Altman's Pret-a-Porter, what's the translation? Ready to Wear, which has got to be the worst Altman film ever. And she's just awful in that. I mean, it's a terribly written part. It's not entirely her fault. And then watching her in this, she's really good in this. You know, not just, I mean, she's beautiful, but her character is very self-aware and aware of her situation, just mocking the men around her most of the time, especially the first couple of times that Russell Crowe shows up. And David Strathairn, how do you say his name?
However you say his name.
He's really good in this, yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And he's usually playing the totally virtuous character in films, right? Like the Edward Murrow and
I've just seen him in the Nomadland, so I had that in my brain.
Oh, he's in that, eh? Okay.
Yeah, he's the other professional besides McDormand.
I was thinking when I was watching, when we talked Wendy and Lucia, that I wish I had seen Nomadland, because I have a feeling that Nomadland is very much akin to that. What about you, Scott, for LA Confidential?
Well, I mean, based sort of playing off, I guess, what you guys said. I mean, it's interesting. Maybe the way I think about the thing in terms of what you're saying about toxic masculinity, even beyond that, maybe it just seems like one of those movies where the director is not going to sort of, I don't want to say give in, but it's going to be unrelenting in terms of its, like most of the characters, except for Kim Basinger, I guess, irredeemable qualities in some ways. Like they do all kind of end up, Russell Crowe probably has the sweetest fate of them all, I guess. But like Ed Exley, I kind of found he was an interesting character because he sort of starts off as the most virtuous, but I actually found him in some ways the most insidious in some ways. Like he's just a real, like, I don't know, do anything to sort of get his way, and just he's a bit deceptive in that way. Whereas Kevin Spacey and Russell Crowe, they kind of lay it out in the line. Kevin Spacey is a total sleazeball, and he sort of relishes being a sleazeball, and Russell Crowe just is who he is, sort of a lunkhead or whatever. And of course, he does have the other dimensions to him. It would be uninteresting if he didn't. But Ed Exley is the one who's kind of the most deceptive of the three. And as the movie went on, and I think it was a really good performance because of this, but I actually kind of found him increasingly creepy throughout the movie. Like I found at first, I thought, oh, this is going to be the guy who's like maybe going to turn some heads and sort of have a positive impact on some of the characters. And you could argue that that happens a little bit with him and Kevin Spacey, but I actually think it went, the director just decided to no, just be true to the genre maybe, and who the characters are. I haven't read any James Ellroy books, but I understand that they're very hard-boiled and brutal and all that, and it just feels like the movie what I liked about the movie is it managed to do that but still be a fairly fun watch. Like I didn't find it's weird because it didn't like rub your face in sort of ugliness or something.
Like Chinatown does at times.
I guess it does, but I love Chinatown.
That's complaint against it, I think.
That's interesting. But for some reason it does that without feeling like it just doesn't feel sordid, or like you didn't want to watch it because it was too ugly. I mean, maybe if I was to think of an equivalent that's not film noir, but like Casino or something, like to compare Casino to Goodfellas is a movie that just has a great spirit, even though all these people are doing a lot of terrible things. Whereas by the time you get to Casino, you kind of don't, I mean, I've only seen it once, so it's been a long time, but you don't even want to spend time with a lot of these people after a while.
I think that's right.
They're just so ugly. There's just so much ugliness. This movie should have been that way, but maybe that's just how well directed it is that I kind of really enjoyed spending time with most of these people. I have to say though, the funniest, I did read one comment on Letterboxd. I thought it was just brilliant. And I don't know if it was original to this person, but he compared the trajectory of the story to The Wizard of Oz. I thought it was so funny. He said, Russell Crowe gets a heart. Kevin Spacey gets a heart. Russell Crowe gets a brain, and Ed Exley finds courage.
That's actually really good.
Which I thought was actually, it's kind of a perfect summary, right? So
you know where I found Ed Exley the creepiest, even though he's being set up and doesn't know it, when he just throws himself on Kim Basinger.
Yes.
Oh,
that was
come out of nowhere with that character.
Yeah.
Like I agree, her allure is overpowering, but you would think he'd be able to keep himself in check there.
The one question I would ask you both about Kim Basinger, though, like I agree with what you both say, and I think she won the Academy Award that year.
Yes,
right. Yeah, she won. It must have been supporting actor, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I did really like her, but I have to say I was also a bit cognizant while watching it that I felt the role itself seemed a little bit cliched, right? Like the hooker with the heart of gold and the only one who can kind of see through them. But it didn't, like, I felt like I was aware of that. It's like you're aware of the conventions, but maybe it's just that she just does such a good job. I don't know, she overrode those concerns, but I don't know. Did either of you have any thoughts about that? Or because I did think of that pretty early on. I was like, oh, she's kind of conventional in the role she's going to play in this.
Yeah. She's the one who doesn't have a lot of illusions. Everybody else has to break through to this point when they realize their way of doing things isn't just right. She already got to that point.
Yeah.
Time when we first meet her, she's already is. So she's not going to make progress in that same way that the other characters are. But she's going to be the prize at the end for the guys. There's problems. I agree with you. It is more stereotypical role, but she does great things with it. So that always does.
Yeah.
The whole thing with what is the name of the agency called again? For your every desire. Or...
No, the thing that's on the card. The thing that's on the card. Yeah, Fleur de Lis. Yeah.
Can't remember the exact thing.
Okay. Anyway, the whole concept of that agency, getting them to working on them to make them look like a specific actress, is there, I think, to set up far and away the funniest scene in the film, right?
Lana Turner?
The Lana Turner?
scene.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I totally forgotten about. And the look on Kevin Spacey's face,
Oh, yeah.
especially when they get back in the car, and even at Guy Pearce has to bust out laughing. It's so good. It's so perfect because she's so, in the restaurant, she's so assertive and nasty. Like, get the fuck out of here, whatever.
Well, it was great. So no, that was great. Well, I did have to roll it back a little bit because I don't feel like Lana Turner's not someone I've seen in many movies, so I didn't know it was her, so I did have to kind of roll it back to see, oh, is that Lana Turner? And yeah,
I guess she had kind of two careers. She had the noir career, but then later she was Douglas Sirk's actress in 2 or 3 films, and these famous kind of whatever soap opera-ish influence on Fassbinder films.
And the guy in the bar, Johnny Stompanato.
Oh yeah,
he was a real character. I always get the story wrong, but if I remember right, he was Lana Turner's boyfriend, and he was beaten. He did something, and Lana Turner's daughter, was it, blew him away and killed him, and got off self-defense or something. And I guess it was the changing of the guard for the studios because they didn't like push it under the rug. Everybody knew about that. Lana Turner's boyfriend was whatever. So. And I like that in the movie. It's like they just toss in this guy that's a real person. It's just so that we can think about it. There's no real reason to be in there. Makes it seem more realistic, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think I knew about that story.
One question I had, and the thing I find about a lot of these noir movies is the plots kind of go in so many different little places that it is hard to keep track of everything. But the one thing I think I sort of get, but I did want to run it by you guys, the thing that Guy Pearce had actually had mentioned to, God, I can't remember who he was. I think it was maybe when he was kind of bonding a little bit with, is it Kevin Spacey's character? What was his name? Vincennes? And he mentioned something about this what's the person's name?
The name they keep.
What's that about? Like it's a made up name or something, right?
Wasn't it just a story that was told to? Who was it told to? And it's about this guy that got off scot-free, and that character came to represent that aspect of.
Was it related to his dad or something? Because his dad was a cop who got shot or something, or was that it? Or
was it Ed Exley's dad or Kevin Spacey's dad?
I thought Ed Exley, because then there's the scene near the end where James Cromwell mentions the name to Ed Exley, kind of like smirk, like I'm on to you a little bit or something.
That's right.
So it had something to do with Ed Exley, and I thought his father, but I was thinking it was just a name that he made up as like the person he wanted to, the killer who never was caught, and that was going to be his driving ambition to be a cop or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
The
name had symbolic value. It represented something.
Okay.
I've forgotten the guy, Rocco something. I forget the name that he threw out there.
Rollo something.
Rollo.
Yeah. Okay.
But because it was nicely set up, because he tells that story to Spacey. Then when Spacey's dead, he says the name so that Cromwell will ask him, and then he goes, "Oh, this guy's." That's a nice little, not very noticeable, but until you see it, and then you go, oh, "That's good writing."
Cromwell kind of reminded me of Everett Sloan, is it, in The Lady from Shanghai?
Ah.
And just the way he arrives at the end, like it's not a house of mirrors, right? But he's there for the final shootout, and you've thought of this character's one thing, and he's just sort of he's the John Huston, the epitome of all evil at the end. Who was the DA they tried to frame? I know that actor.
Oh yeah.
That guy.
What's that?
Ron Rifkin. I'm looking at the IMDb. Okay. He's really good.
Rifkin.
That's right. I've seen him in a lot of stuff. He was very good in that.
Is he in Spinal Tap or something? Like, yeah.
Was he one of the drummers?
No, I was thinking one of the like sleazy record guys. I could be mixing him up with someone, but
he's a character actor. He's in so much stuff. Curtis Hanson, who I get confused with Curtis Harrington, who was kind of an underground director. Has Curtis Hanson done anything else of note? One thing I remember about this film was that he'd done other films, and he just came out of the blue on this one. People were saying, like, this is Curtis Hanson.
He did like Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And
yeah, he was. Maybe.
He was a favorite of Cale. He was one of those.
Oh, really?
This guy, but I like his movies. And then, he made L.A. Confidential. I don't know that, he didn't have a bad career, but I don't know that he's.
I don't think he ever got anywhere near as much attention for another film other than this one.
Did you ever see in your travels anywhere, Stephen or Phil, if Cale ever commented on this movie? Obviously, she didn't write about it, but
no, I got to check those interview books.
Yeah, I know. I think I looked in some indexes to see, but I didn't come across anything.
I could see her liking it because, like, for some of the reasons Scott said, that it's got this kind of light feel to it, even though it's dealing with sordid stuff. It doesn't rub your nose and things. It's probably, and here's a film I haven't seen for ages that I probably, as a pretext to go back and watch it, wouldn't mind doing it, would be Pritchie's Honor. I get the feeling it has sort of the same feel as that, which Cale loved. Like, you could see John Huston directing this film, right?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
But you couldn't see Roman Polanski directing this film. And she much prefers the John Huston style of the Roman Polanski.
He changed the ending. He changed the ending.
He changed the ending, that's right. It'd be everybody would get blown away in the final scene.
Except Cromwell's character.
Except for Cromwell, he'd walk away.
And he'd take over the mob.
I do want to go back and watch Chinatown after this movie, but I have a question. We've only got like 5 minutes in this particular recording, but maybe, well, for both of you, but I'm curious, either of you, how much this movie you sort of think of it in terms of it being a noir. Like do you sort of place it with, it is obviously within that tradition, but how does it stack up against maybe some of your own favorite movies in that genre? Like, for me, I think honestly, including both sort of 40s, 50s noir and latter day noir, like from the 70s or whatever, I think I've maybe seen, I could say maybe half a dozen in total, maybe more than that, but half a dozen would come to mind immediately. So how does it place for you guys in that respect as a noir?
I'll let Stephen talk mostly. I'll just say, for me, I've come to like it, but it's not anywhere near among my favorites.
When I was thinking about how, how I evaluate more recent movies, one of the things I thought is, okay, is this movie as good as The Big Sleep? And it wasn't even the noir part, it was more the LA part.
Right.
It was a way of forcing myself to confront the fact that, do I like Big Sleep because it's a million years old, or, whatever. I think that LA Confidential does a great job with color and brightness.
Yeah, it's harder to make a noir, right?
That's not noir, but
right.
It is noir. It's just, hey, we're just not going to, we're going to use sunlight. We're in LA. I thought that was clever, and it worked. But again, from the first time I saw it, I was thinking of James Ellroy. And so he's just so vile. I don't mean that author.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a scene in one of his books, and I don't remember which one, but it's always stuck with me. There's this crooked cop, and he wants to get back at some, scumbag. So he goes to a prostitute who has venereal disease. I don't remember which one, Sif, whatever. He goes and he has sex with the prostitute. Then he goes back to the guy he hates, and he jerks off in the guy's eye. And then it's like, I forget how he shuts it, but the implication being that the guy's it must have been syphilis, because he's going to be blind the rest of his life because the hero
wow.
off in his eye after he gave himself a venereal disease. That's to me, James Ellroy.
I can see how that wouldn't disappear from your mind if you read that on the page.
If I wanted to start with one Ellroy book, I've had it for years. Would My Dark Places be the place to start?
It's been a long time.
Okay.
That has long in the title. I think that hit me. But if I looked at the list, I'd probably be better off. I mean, part of this is that when I was writing my dissertation and I'm confronted with writing a couple hundred pages, So how am I going to do this? So I split it up into 5 detectives, starting with Hammett, went through Sarah Pretsky. So that made it easy because instead of writing 200 pages, I was writing 30 here, 30 there, 30 there. So someone like Elroy, he wasn't in my dissertation because I was trying to give myself a workable format. I kind of went sideways with it because I started with Hammett, then I went to Chandler, and I should have gone to Ross McDonald, who was probably the proper successor there. But
he did Harper, right?
Was that, yeah.
Harper.
Mickey Spillane was so popular, I felt obliged. And so I did Mickey Spillane, and I put it in a footnote that I've always maintained that the canon sucks, quality is subjective, you can't tell me this and that's good. And I said, and then I read Mickey Spillane. Wow, the guy's horrible. But on the other hand, very popular, and you can kind of tell why. But you know, his books, they're like, you don't have typos. They just seem like they had a poor idea. Looks like I can't see my camera there. But look, they look like a porn book or something in terms of the editing and everything. So,
wow.
I gave him a chapter anyway.
In my noir pantheon, Scott, I'd actually include that 2nd season of Fargo TV show, which has to contend with the same thing. It's you know, it's got to be in color, but it's not only great, but it kind of philosophizes about noir, and at least one key scene I can think of.
Okay.
It's meta noir, whatever.
This is the season of that season 2. Is that Kirsten Dunst?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't recommend that enough.
It's UFO. That's what
they could have done. They could have done without that. That was a little weird, but
I like that one. And then those two got married, or at least they're a woosome twosome ever since. But I love that part too. I think they've had a kid and everything.
I know.